Welcome to the fifth episode of The Open Ground. Today's exploration should have been pushed until a later date, but I was too excited about it. I hope you enjoy Nothing, Something, Spectrum, and Reason. The Ambiguous Paradox. Meta-reflection on method and dialectical integration. This essay operates from what I term quantum-native philosophical method, an approach that recognizes traditional philosophical categories were developed under classical assumptions that quantum mechanics reveals to be untenable. Where classical philosophy assumes observer independence, discrete categories, and pre-existing determinate states, quantum native philosophy operates under conditions of observer-observed entanglement. Measurement participates in creating what's measured. Superposition is method, holding multiple states simultaneously until interaction clarifies. Relational emergence. Properties arise through interaction rather than existing independently. This is not philosophy using quantum mechanics as metaphor, but philosophy reconstructed to operate under the conditions quantum mechanics reveals to be fundamental to reality itself. The spectrum model of nothing-something mediated by reason reflects this quantum native approach. In classical philosophy, nothing and something would be discrete, oppositional categories. Under quantum conditions, they represent points on a continuum where interaction, reason, participates in actualizing potentialities. This mirrors how quantum measurement doesn't discover pre-existing properties, but participates in their manifestation. On dialectical integration, a quantum native resolution. The apparent tension between Hegelian and Marxist dialectics dissolves when approached through quantum native philosophical method. Classical readings treat them as incompatible because classical philosophy assumes observer independence, that reality exists in determinate states independent of our engagement with it. Hegelian dialectics operates through the logic of contradiction and synthesis, emphasizing the internal tensions within concepts that drive their transformation. Marxist dialectical materialism emphasizes material conditions and class struggle as drivers of historical change. Classical philosophy treats these as contradictory because it assumes they must refer to the same independent reality in incompatible ways. Under quantum conditions, this opposition dissolves. Both dialectical approaches become complementary perspectives on the same underlying process of tension-bearing transformation. Hegel's conceptual dialectics maps the observer side of quantum dialectical process, how consciousness participates in the becoming of reality through the tension-bearing engagement with contradiction. Marx's material dialectics maps the observed side of the same process, how material conditions create the tensions that consciousness must engage with. In quantum native philosophy, consciousness and material conditions are entangled rather than separate. The observer-observed distinction is contextual rather than absolute. Therefore, Hegelian and Marxist dialectics are not competing theories about the same independent reality, but complementary descriptions of entangled aspects of the same tension-bearing process. This integration becomes possible only when we abandon classical assumptions about observer independence. Under quantum conditions, consciousness engaging with contradiction, Hegel, and material conditions. Creating contradiction, Marx, are co-constitutive aspects of the same underlying reality process. The spectrum model operates dialectically in this integrated sense. Nothing and something are not static opposites, but tension-bearing moments in ongoing becoming, where reason functions as both the consciousness engaging with contradiction, Hegelian moment, and the material conditions creating the tension that demands resolution, Marxist moment. On reason as quantum dialectical mediator. The apparent conceptual overload of reason, encompassing causal mechanisms, natural laws, logical sequences, and existential motivations, reflects genuine quantum dialectical complexity rather than philosophical imprecision. Under classical conditions, these would need to be separate categories because classical philosophy assumes discrete, independent domains. Under quantum conditions, where measurement participates in creating what's measured, these distinctions become contextual rather than absolute. Reason operates simultaneously as Hegelian logical necessity, consciousness engaging with contradiction. Marxist material causation, conditions creating tensions requiring resolution. Quantum interaction, measurement participating in manifestation. Process philosophical becoming. Whiteheadian eternal objects, actualizing in occasions. This is not conceptual confusion but methodological sophistication, recognizing that under quantum conditions, the mediating process that transforms potentiality into actuality necessarily operates across what classical philosophy treats as separate domains. Implications for philosophical practice. This quantum native approach requires abandoning the classical desire for discrete categories and universal foundations. Instead, it embraces tension-bearing scaffolding that can hold multiple complementary perspectives simultaneously while remaining responsive to the conditions under which observation occurs. The integration of Buddhist shunyata, process philosophy, and dialectical materialism becomes methodologically necessary rather than eclectic because each tradition contributes essential insights about operating under conditions of interdependence, becoming, and tension-bearing transformation. This is philosophy appropriate to quantum conditions, where observation participates in reality, where categories are relational rather than absolute, and where uncertainty is fundamental rather than merely epistemic. The method itself embodies the quantum dialectical principle, holding the tension between multiple philosophical traditions without premature synthesis, allowing their interaction to generate new insights while remaining open to continuous recalibration as our understanding deepens. This meta-reflection clarifies the methodological foundations underlying the spectrum model, while demonstrating how apparent conceptual tensions resolve when approached through quantum native philosophical method. The integration of dialectical traditions becomes not only possible but necessary once we abandon classical assumptions about observer independence and discrete categorical boundaries. We begin from there. Nothing is something without reason, while nothing is just something without a reason. In the areas of philosophy and science, the concepts of nothing and something traditionally occupy opposing ends of a spectrum of existence. Yet, this dichotomy oversimplifies the nuances and subtleties inherent in these states. This essay proposes a revolutionary perspective. Nothing and something are not mere opposites but interconnected points on a continuum, with reason serving as the transformative mechanism that facilitates their interaction. This view challenges conventional understanding and invites a re-evaluation of the fundamental nature of existence. Drawing from the insights of process philosophy, quantum theory, and dialectical materialism, this exploration seeks to redefine the very notions of absence and presence. We will examine nothing not as an absolute void, devoid of potential, but as a fertile ground, ripe with latent possibilities awaiting activation. Conversely, something is seen as the actualization of these possibilities, brought into existence through various forms of reason, be it natural laws, causal dynamics, logical sequences, or existential motivations. My philosophical framework of perpetualism, which emphasizes the continuous process of becoming, provides a crucial lens through which to view this transformation. The perpetualist challenge is to consider that understanding itself is not static. It evolves as we engage with and reflect upon the intersection of ideas and realities. This perspective aligns with the proposed spectrum model by suggesting that existence is not a fixed state, but a perpetual flux mediated by reason. By integrating philosophical theories with practical insights from modern science, this essay aims to enrich our understanding of how nothing can transform into something. This is not merely an academic exercise, but a philosophical examination that resonates with the deepest questions of existence and purpose. As we navigate through these concepts, we aim to not only clarify their meanings, but also to demonstrate their relevance to contemporary philosophical and scientific discussions. Defining the conceptual framework. Nothing explained. The philosophical journey through the concept of nothing begins by challenging the notion of absolute void. Traditionally seen as the absence of being, nothing is here considered a fertile ground of potentiality. As Heidegger once put it, why are there beings at all instead of nothing? That is the question. This interrogation of nothing reveals it not as mere emptiness, but as a prelude to existence, ripe with possibilities yet to be actualized. Something explained. Transitioning from nothing to something involves the crystallization of latent potentialities into discernible, defined forms. Something represents the actualization of potential, where previously dormant possibilities manifest as tangible, observable phenomena. This shift can be illustrated through the principles of emergence theory and systems science, where new properties and complexities arise not from the mere sum of parts, but from their interactions. Aristotle's insight that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts echoes here, suggesting that something emerges through a synthesis that transcends its constituent elements. Role of reason. In this conceptual landscape, reason operates as the transformative agent, the catalyst that facilitates the metamorphosis from nothing to something. This is not limited to causal reasoning, but encompasses a broader spectrum of dynamics, including natural laws, logical sequences, and existential motivations. In the realm of natural sciences, reason may manifest as physical laws that dictate the behavior of matter and energy, guiding the emergence of complex structures from simple particles. Philosophically, reason extends to the logic that underpins existence. It's the framework within which potential finds expression. Perpetualism offers a valuable perspective here, positing that understanding evolves as we engage dynamically with the realities we observe and the theoretical frameworks we construct. Thus, reason is seen not just as a series of static truths, but as an ongoing process that molds nothing into something, reflecting the perpetual motion and transformation inherent in existence. This expanded view of reason aligns with the processual nature of perpetualism, emphasizing continuous evolution and the fluidity between states of being. It highlights how the universe is not merely a static arena in which events unfold, but an interactive field where the potential nothing continuously transforms into actuality, something, through various mechanisms of reason. This approach not only enriches our understanding of metaphysical transitions, but also ties into broader existential questions about the nature of reality and our place within it. Philosophical integration. Process philosophy. Alfred North Whitehead's process philosophy offers a robust framework for understanding the dynamic nature of reality. Whitehead proposed that reality is not composed of static materials, but rather of events and processes that are continuously unfolding. According to him, nature is a structure of evolving processes. The reality is the process. This perspective aligns with our model, where nothing and something are seen as part of an evolutionary process rather than fixed states. In this view, reason acts as the conduit through which potentialities inherent in nothing evolve into the complexities of something. Whitehead's emphasis on the interconnectedness and interdependence of all things underscores the fluid transitions on our proposed spectrum. Buddhist shunyata, emptiness. The concept of shunyata in Buddhist philosophy complements our exploration. Shunyata, often translated as emptiness, does not denote mere nothingness, but rather the absence of inherent existence independent of other phenomena. Nagarjuna, a key figure in Mahayana Buddhism, articulated this as, emptiness wrongly grasped is like picking up a poisonous snake by the wrong end. This suggests that emptiness, shunyata, must be understood not as nihilistic void, but as a fundamental characteristic of all phenomena, implying that entities arise and exist only through mutual interdependence. In the context of our model, this supports the notion that something emerges from nothing through the interdependencies defined by reason, further highlighting the non-binary nature of existence and the continuum between these states. Insights from quantum theory. To deepen our exploration of the transformation from nothing to something, we turn to insights from quantum theory, which provides a scientific foundation for understanding how potentiality can give rise to actuality. This scientific perspective not only enriches our philosophical discussion, but also demonstrates the interdisciplinary nature of this inquiry. Quantum vacuum. In quantum field theory, the concept of a vacuum is far from being an empty void. Instead, it is a seething background of fluctuating energy, filled with virtual particles that constantly pop in and out of existence. This phenomenon is vividly illustrated by the Casimir effect, where two uncharged parallel plates in a vacuum will experience an attractive force due to the vacuum fluctuations. This challenges the classical notion of nothing as pure absence. As physicist Richard Feynman stated, the vacuum is not empty. It is filled with temporary particles that are constantly forming and destroying themselves. This quantum understanding aligns with our spectrum model by showing that nothing inherently contains the potential for something. Implications for the spectrum model. The quantum vacuum serves as a scientific analogy for our philosophical proposition that nothing and something are points on a continuum. In this model, reason corresponds to the physical laws and forces that govern quantum fluctuations. These laws are the reason that mediates the transition from the latent potentiality of nothing to the manifest actuality of something. This not only supports our view, but also provides a tangible example of how potentialities can become actualities under the right conditions. The implications extend beyond physics into our understanding of existence itself, suggesting that nothing is not an absence but a state of dynamic potential, waiting to be actualized by reason. Philosophical resonance. The insights from quantum theory resonate deeply with the ideas found in both process philosophy and Buddhist thought. In process philosophy, the continuous becoming of reality can be seen in the constant activity within the quantum vacuum. Similarly, the Buddhist concept of shunyata, emptiness, aligns with the idea that the vacuum is not truly empty, but filled with potential interdependencies and conditions. This interdisciplinary resonance underscores the fluidity and interconnectedness of existence, where nothing and something are perpetually in flux, mediated by the transformative power of reason. Dialectical materialism and transformation. Expanding on the philosophical and scientific foundations laid out in previous sections, we now explore the concept of transformation through the lens of dialectical materialism. This approach, rooted in Marxist philosophy, offers a compelling framework for understanding the dynamic interplay between nothing and something, mediated by reason. Contradictory dynamics. Dialectical materialism posits that change and development occur through the resolution of contradictions between opposing forces. This principle can be applied to our model of nothing and something, where these states are not seen as static or mutually exclusive, but as dynamic entities in a constant state of flux. Karl Marx's view that the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles reflects this dialectical approach, where societal change arises from the conflict and resolution between opposing classes. Similarly, the transformation from nothing to something can be seen as a dialectical process driven by the inherent contradictions and tensions within nothing that seek resolution through reason. Application to the spectrum. In our spectrum model, reason acts as the mediator that resolves the contradictions between nothing and something, facilitating their transformation. This is akin to the dialectical process where thesis and antithesis interact to produce a synthesis, a new state that transcends and incorporates elements of both. Here, nothing, thesis, and something, antithesis, interact through the catalyst of reason to produce new forms of existence, synthesis. This process is continuous and cyclical, reflecting the perpetual motion inherent in both dialectical materialism and the broader framework of perpetualism. As Hegel noted, the truth is found neither in the thesis nor the antithesis, but in an emergent synthesis which reconciles the two. Philosophical implications. The dialectical approach enriches our understanding of the dynamic relationship between nothing and something. It emphasizes that these states are not isolated or independent, but are constantly interacting and transforming through the mediation of reason. This perspective aligns with the principles of perpetualism, which posits that understanding and existence are not static but are in a state of continuous evolution. By viewing nothing and something as dialectical forces, we recognize that existence is a process of perpetual becoming, driven by the resolution of contradictions through reason. Broader contexts. This dialectical view can be extended to various aspects of human experience and knowledge. In social and historical contexts, it underscores the importance of conflict and resolution in driving progress and change. In personal and existential realms, it highlights the role of internal and external contradictions in shaping individual growth and transformation. The interplay between nothing and something through reason thus becomes a universal principle, applicable across different domains of inquiry and experience. Theoretical implications and applications. Having established the conceptual framework and philosophical underpinnings, we now explore the broader theoretical implications and practical applications of viewing nothing and something on a spectrum mediated by reason. This section dives into how this model can influence our understanding of various fields and aspects of existence. Metaphysical and ontological implications. The spectrum model challenges traditional metaphysical and ontological categories that treat nothing and something as discrete and oppositional. By positioning them on a continuum, we acknowledge the fluidity of existence and the dynamic processes that underlie reality. This perspective invites us to reconsider foundational questions about being and non-being. As philosopher Parmenides asserted, what is, and what is not, is not. Our model complicates this dichotomy by suggesting that what is not, nothing, can become what is, something, through the mediation of reason. This has implications for how we understand existence itself, suggesting a more interconnected and processual view of reality. Epistemological questions. The transition from nothing to something raises epistemological questions about how we perceive and understand these states. If nothing contains latent potentialities, how do we recognize and study these potentialities before they manifest as something? This touches on the limits of human knowledge and the methods by which we explore the unknown. It challenges the epistemic frameworks that rely on observable phenomena, urging us to develop new ways of thinking and knowing that can account for the unseen and the potential. This is particularly relevant in scientific fields that deal with quantum mechanics and cosmology, where much of what exists is inferred rather than directly observed. It also resonates with the philosophical approach of perpetualism, which advocates for a dynamic and evolving understanding of knowledge. Ethical and existential reflections. Understanding the spectrum of existence influences our ethical and existential perspectives. If nothing holds the potential to become something, this underscores the importance of intent and action in shaping reality. It suggests that our choices and actions are not isolated events but part of a broader process of becoming. This can lead to a more nuanced view of responsibility and agency, emphasizing that even seemingly inconsequential actions can have significant impacts. Existentially, this model resonates with the idea that life is a continuous process of transformation and becoming. As Sartre noted, existence precedes essence. This means that we continuously create our essence through our actions and choices. The spectrum model supports this view by highlighting the ongoing interplay between potential and actualization, mediated by reason. Broader contexts and applications. This theoretical framework can be applied across various disciplines and contexts. In cosmology, it can inform our understanding of the origins of the universe suggesting that the transition from the quantum vacuum to the observable universe is a natural process of potentiality becoming actuality. In cognitive science, it can shape how we study the emergence of consciousness and intelligence from neural potentialities. In social sciences, it can influence how we understand societal changes and historical developments, viewing them as part of a continuous process of transformation driven by underlying reasons and conditions. By examining these broader implications, we see that the spectrum model of nothing to something, mediated by reason, offers a versatile framework for understanding various aspects of existence. It bridges philosophical inquiry with scientific exploration and provides a cohesive approach to studying the dynamic processes that underlie reality. This aligns with the principles of perpetualism, emphasizing the continuous evolution and interconnectedness of all things, and invites further interdisciplinary research and reflection. Conclusion. By viewing nothing and something as points on a spectrum mediated by reason, this essay has offered an enhanced understanding of existence. This perspective not only challenges traditional philosophical views, but also integrates insights from modern science to provide a comprehensive model of reality. We have explored how this framework impacts our metaphysical, epistemological, ethical, and existential understandings, emphasizing the continuous dynamic interplay of potentiality and actuality. This approach aligns with perpetualism, advocating for an evolving, interconnected view of knowledge and existence. Postlude. After the argument concludes, what remains is the work itself. The recognition. This essay has attempted something that classical philosophical method renders nearly impossible: the integration of major intellectual traditions under conditions that quantum mechanics reveals to be fundamental to reality itself. The spectrum model of nothing, something mediated by reason, represents not merely another philosophical position, but a demonstration of what becomes possible when we abandon classical assumptions about observer independence and categorical fixity. Yet even as these words arrange themselves into systematic exposition, they participate in the very paradox they seek to illuminate. We have used classical argumentation to argue for post-classical method, linear exposition to demonstrate non-linear integration, discrete categories to transcend categorical thinking. This is not oversight but necessity, the condition under which all intellectual transition must occur. The strategic intent. I have not written this essay to convince, but to catalyze. The goal is not acceptance of these specific integrations, but recognition of the work that quantum conditions make necessary. Every specialist who objects that I have misunderstood their tradition faces a deeper question. How does your understanding hold under conditions of observer-observed entanglement? Every dismissal that this synthesis is premature must grapple with the mounting evidence that classical philosophical method is inadequate to contemporary intellectual challenges. The incorrectness that specialists will inevitably identify serves a function. It demonstrates the need for integration work that classical training has not equipped them to perform. Their corrections become invitations to develop post-classical approaches to cross-traditional engagement. The inevitability. Quantum mechanics will force this reckoning across disciplines whether philosophy participates or not. Consciousness studies, social sciences, cognitive research, all confront observer-participant problems that classical method cannot resolve. Philosophy can lead this intellectual evolution or be dragged through it by developments in other fields. The choice is not whether to engage with quantum implications for philosophical methodology, but whether to engage thoughtfully or be forced to respond reactively as the implications accumulate. The cascade. Any significant merit in quantum native philosophical approaches creates immediate pressure on classical philosophy. The comfortable dismissal, this is premature, philosophy and physics are separate, synthesis is impossible, becomes increasingly costly as evidence mounts that classical assumptions are obsolete. Individual philosophers begin exploring quantum implications. Graduate students develop post-classical methodologies. Research programs emerge around observer-observed entanglement. Publishing opportunities multiply for quantum philosophy integration. Each development increases pressure on those not engaging. The intellectual architecture. What I have provided here is scaffolding, not doctrine. The spectrum model, the dialectical integration, the quantum native methodology. These are tools for approaching work that must be done collectively rather than solutions that can be accepted individually. The frameworks invite testing, refinement, challenge, and eventual surpassing. They succeed not by proving themselves correct, but by enabling more sophisticated engagement with the complexities they address. The meta-recognition. Our conversation about reality participates in creating what becomes thinkable about reality. Under quantum conditions, intellectual frameworks don't just describe, but help constitute what emerges as possible. This makes philosophical method not merely academic exercise, but participation in shaping how humanity navigates uncertainty, complexity, and the challenges that arise when classical categories prove inadequate. The work ahead. Philosophy stands at a threshold. Classical method has reached its limits in addressing observer-observed entanglement, cross-traditional integration, and the implications of quantum mechanics for questions of knowledge, reality, and meaning. Post-classical alternatives must be developed through sustained intellectual work rather than theoretical speculation. This requires covering oneself in the shit of abandoning comfortable assumptions, learning to think under conditions of fundamental uncertainty, and building new philosophical tools while standing on the scaffolding under construction. The final paradox. I conclude with the recognition that conclusions are precisely what quantum native philosophy must avoid. The work documented here represents a beginning rather than an ending, scaffolding rather than architecture, invitation rather than arrival. The spectrum between nothing and something, mediated by reason, continues its dynamic unfolding. We participate in that unfolding through every act of philosophical engagement, every attempt to think more clearly about thinking itself, every willingness to abandon what no longer serves the complexity we face. The argument ends, the conversation continues. The work awaits. I hope that you enjoyed this. Until next time.